Ja Morant will lose more than $50 million for doing one thing, and he's kind of lucky it wasn't more. When Morant signed a 5-year, $194.3 million rookie max extension in 2022, his contract had a clause that would have gave him a huge salary bump if he either became MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, or made an All-NBA team by the end of the season. While the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year were a bit out of his reach, making the All-NBA team seemed like a gimme. The Grizzlies were consistently one of the best teams in the West. Morant was top 10 in the MVP ladder for most of the season, and for a time was even number 1. But after he showed a live firearm on his IG while at the strip club in Colorado, his off-court troubles finally caught up to him. Well, only because he had too much to drink that night. Let's not forget Morant, or his entourage, had to deal with a ton of legal issues in the last 12 months. He was in the news because of his friends nearly assaulted a security guard at the mall. He beat up a 17-year-old kid outside his house because he checked the ball too hard, then threatened him with a gun. After a home game against the Pacers, the van where Morant rode in allegedly flashed a red laser on several of the Pacers staff. While most people thought that was a gun, but since no concrete evidence were seen from any of these incidents, he was only given an 8-game suspension for showing a gun, which ultimately cost him $650,000. From there, Morant looked like he turned the corner. He went to rehab, apologized to everyone on live TV, and said he'd be a role model people would expect him to be. Unfortunately, less than 2 months later, Morant did it again, only this time on somebody else's IG Live. Even though it was just for a split second, and even though Morant showed the gun he had wasn't even real, the NBA wasn't going to let that slide and hit him with a 25-game suspension, which was more than double his initial punishment. With Morant expected to make $36 million next season, he'll lose out on not only an additional $7.6 million in salaries, but another year of making the All-NBA team. The Morant situation has gotten so bad, Brian Windhorst thinks it's one of the worst penalties in the history of professional sports. And now people close to Ja think the NBA is out to get him. The next season will be the most important season of Ja's career. He already has 2 strikes. And while this may not be baseball, I think we all know what happens to people who get their third.